What's going on, everybody? This is Travis Witherspoon from Trade with Travis, Carter Cow Capital, obviously on YouTube and on the Facebook. Thank you for being able to watch us again for another trade of the week. What we're going to end up talking about is one of two trades of the week that I think is going to end up amassing a pretty good profit, and this one's going to end up being on gold versus the United States dollar. Now, if you're not a part of our overall mailing list, all you have to do is go to cartercowcapital.com/start here. That'll be in the description. All you have to do is just click on that, sign up for one of our free webinars, and you automatically end up getting our trades of the weeks when we end up sending them out to our mailing list. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Let's go ahead and talk about why I believe that gold United States dollar is going to end up being one of those trades, if the right setup ends up playing out, that you could be able to make a pretty good bit off of that. But we always got to give context into why we end up trading these overall pairs. There are three things that makes us end up getting into the market. First off, it's time frame alignment. If the weekly and the daily end up trading in the same direction. The second thing that we end up looking for is a overbought or an oversold area inside of the time frame alignment that we that matches up with the time frame alignment that we end up choosing out. And then after that, we look for a counter trend line break or a catalyst that ends up breaking off. So let's take a look at the United States dollar for a reason of why we're looking at this for the overall catalyst, or why we think that we're probably going to see that the United States dollar is going to get a little bit stronger, which means that we should be selling on gold versus the United States dollar. So let's take a look at this from a weekly perspective. When we look at the United States dollar index, we see that this market end up breaking out of consolidation. And typically when you end up having a breakout of consolidation, you will end up seeing a retest. What does that mean when it comes down to a retest? That means that overall that the United States dollar over the course of the first couple days should probably be a little bit weaker, which will end up giving us a better chance of being able to get into the spot a little bit more with value to be able to sell down. So the first couple days, I don't think that you'll probably end up seeing this move when it comes down to gold United States dollar. I'm going to explain why when we end up taking a look at that chart. But overall, I do expect that we should see a pretty good movement. So the market should be able to retest at the beginning of this week right around the 11,978 area. And then after that, should start pushing back up towards the weekly D extension at 12,153. And you take a look at this from a daily perspective, we can see that we end up having basically the shooting star candlestick that end up ending off on Friday, which means that I do expect that we should see some downside movement going into Sunday. It should just make a evening star when it comes down to that overall movement, depending on how big the force actually is. But that movement should basically retest this overall area of past resistance, turn future support, and then after that push up to that 12,153 area. So overall, once again, I do believe that the market is going to be bullish, but this one has to play out just a little bit more. So we gave context, so now let's go ahead and take a look at the chart. We take a look at what's happening with gold and take a look at it from a weekly perspective. We can see that the market has ended up breaking out to the downside, and I do expect that the market over time should go ahead and gradually start moving towards that weekly D extension at 1648, or basically you can say 1650 if you want to be able to round off. Now, there's two other positions that you want to be able to pay attention to. The daily D extension down is at 1672. And then after that, you have this little support area at 1725 that the market ended up falling back down to and going from there. Now, if you look at it, going back to what we talked about with consolidation, we end up having a breakout of consolidation, and typically what you end up seeing is the market going to end up retesting. So the weekly is at a downside perspective, but we're looking at, or we should see a little bit of consolidation based off of that retest area. Taking a look at the daily, we can see that past of last week, we end up getting into that we end up retesting, and now we're in that consolidated area. As long as the market does not break inside this 1800 area, 1795, then that gives us an opportunity of being able to say that this market is going to continually start to fall down. And we also see that the daily is in a sell zone when it comes down to overall perspective and position of where it is at this particular point. Now we can move on to the 2 hour and be able to make a decision on what's going to end up happening from there. If we look at the 2 hour, we can see that the market is actually in consolidation, which matches up with what we're saying from this market actually falling eventually during the middle of the overall week. As we see that this market is at the support of this overall triangle, remember what happens inside of a triangle is that the market is going to end up testing the overall resistance and support a few different times until the market starts to really start to condense, and then after that start to fall. So what I'm looking for, I'm actually trying to gear up and trying to find a position right around that 1788 area, which is actually the natural resistance of being able to get in. I'm going to place my stop just above the overall consolidation area, which will be above 1793. More than likely, it's probably going to end up being above this overall area as well. I'm probably going to end up placing it right around that 1800 area just to give myself a little bit of room, and expect that this market will eventually start to fall from that overall downside movement. That's the reason why I think that the market, that this overall movement is going to end up happening at the middle of the week, possibly toward the end of the week when it comes down to this overall movement to the downside. Now, remember, the higher the price that you end up getting inside of a consolidation, moving inside of resistance or catching it at resistance will end up giving you a higher chance of being able to profit without necessarily having to be able to be in drawdown. So make sure that you end up catching it when the market is at resistance instead of trying to catch it at support and being able to see a breakout. If there is a breakout at this particular point, I will almost guess that it will end up being a fake out and seeing that the market will start to push back up based off of what we end up talking about, what's happening with the overall daily and how the market is basically having to retest the overall zones of turning past resistance and the future support based off the United States dollar index. Now, overall, if you like what we end up doing with this overall trade, like always, please make sure that you end up liking and sharing this to other people that you think will end up liking overall trades when it comes down to metals, indexes, Forex, or anything else like that. Once again, this has a 85% chance of being able to have a good probability of success. However, you have to wait for it to be able to get into the right spot. Like always, plan your trade, trade your plan. Everyone, y'all end up having a good one.